Okay, so we selected Visual Basic, Windows Forms application, CS111, today's date. We're going to talk about variables. Let me go ahead and click OK. Give it a couple seconds and then the form will pop up. And what I want to do is to open up the toolbox and click down on this push pin so that this toolbox panel does not disappear. Some of you might have the toolbox floating around like this. If that's the case, if you want to get it to dock on the left-hand side, you just drag the title, hover on top of this semi-transparent button over here, and then it's going to dock it into place. Same thing with the properties panel. If this thing is floating, then you just simply grab this, move it on top of this transparent button, dock it into place. Maybe you don't see toolbox. Maybe you don't see properties because someone accidentally deleted it, or maybe you did. If you just click on View, then you'll see over here the toolbox. So I click on that, and there it is. If I click on View and go to Other Windows and then select the Properties window or press Alt-Enter, then that's going to display the Properties panel over here. Okay, so within the toolbox, I want to open up the Common Controls. And then within the Common Controls, those are the things that you're going to drag and drop to the form. So we'll drag and drop a button, a label, and also a text box. So these are the different items that you will use predominantly throughout the semester. And last time we talked about being able to fill in information within the text box and then to display something like hello and then whatever the person's name is, right? Well, now let's jump forward a little bit and let's talk about creating variables. All right, so a variable, you can think of that as a box, and you could put stuff in the box, specifically numbers, values. Okay, so a variable varies, whereas a constant does not change. A constant is something that is static. Well, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to move the label to the upper left-hand corner like this, and over here in the Properties panel, if the Properties panel is hidden, go ahead and click on this. I'm going to click on the Auto Hide push pin so that it doesn't disappear. I'm going to scroll down and locate the text property. So notice that that says label 1 like you see over here. Well, what I'll do over here is I'll just say num1 for number 1. And then I'll place a text box underneath it. I'll remove the larger size text box and make it a little bit smaller or resize it so it looks something like this. Notice the blue line that I have over here, it kind of stops right here. And then the same thing over here, I'm going to have it stop right next to the letter N over here. All right, so I also want to do the same thing for num2 because my intention is to add, subtract, divide, whatever. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll select these two items. Watch how I do it first, then you try. So if I hold down the mouse button right here, you'll notice this rubber band box effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two items. So all I have to do is touch them. I don't even have to encapsulate them. If I were to touch this guy and let go, notice that those two items are selected. Let me do that again. I can do that from over here. Hold down the mouse button, touch, touch, and then you can see those two are selected. Another way to do this is to also hold down the Shift button. So for example, if I select this guy, now I'm going to hold down Shift on the keyboard, and then I'm going to select the second item. You could do it that way as well. Okay. Now I'll take this and I'll copy and paste. You guys know that this is Control-C, Control-V is in Victor. So Control-C, Control-V, and now notice that you've made a duplicate. Let's go ahead and take this guy and move it over here. I want to give a little bit of space in between here because I'm going to put a button over here that says like plus or minus or whatever it's supposed to be. So let me move this over here to something like this. Notice over here that I can align this so that it looks like this, say for example, with this blue underline or this magenta underline. The reason why I like this is because that magenta underline tells me that this text box is at the same level as the other text box, and that's what I want. So I will let go. Let me now unselect over here and reselect num1. So this label is selected by itself. I'll scroll down to the text property. It says num1. Let me change that to num2. Press enter. So this says now num2 because we changed the text property. All right, now let me take this button and I'm going to reduce the size a little bit, put it in between here. So something like this maybe. I'll go all the way to the top like this, and I'm going to change that text so that it is the plus symbol, because we're going to add these two together. So put a button in between those two. Change the text property so that it is the addition symbol. And now what I'll do is I'll increase the font size, because that's too small. So to increase the font size, again, go to the Properties panel. You'll notice that the properties for the button 1 is now displayed. And if I locate the font property, I can click this plus symbol to expand all of the different sub-properties, such as the size or the name of the font, or whether or not it's bold, italicized, or underlined, say for example. So that's one thing I could do. I could go over here and change the size to 9 and press enter. Well, that's still too small. Let me show you another option also. I could change the number here, so you know about that now. One of the things I could do is, if I select the font property, you'll notice this button over here that has the 3 dots. We call it the ellipsis. Whenever you see a button like that, that means that if you click it, a menu is probably going to open up, or some sort of a dialog. And in this case, a dialog opens up, indicating what's the font, style, size, and some of the different effects. Well, let me select 12 points. Click OK. All right, that looks a lot better. So whether you want to change the size over here, the name, bold, italicized, underline, or if you want to click on this button over here, that's up to you. Let me unselect by clicking one time over here. All right, so that's what my form looks like so far. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a label down here to display whatever the answer is for the addition of these two items. So what I'll do is I'll select this label. Now, could I have gone over here and drag and drop a label and place it over here? Sure, I can do that. Another option is just to simply take an existing label and to copy and paste it. So again, whichever approach you want to take, that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll take this label that I've selected. Watch this. I click it to select it. Control-C, Control-V as in Victor, and here's the label. Now, we can't resize it right now because currently this label is in the auto size mode. In other words, it's being automatically sized. So what we're going to do is scroll to the top and locate the auto size property. What this guy does is it allows me to either size it for myself manually or to automatically size. I can select this drop down and select false. By the way, quick shortcut, if you double click on the property, it'll toggle this. So this is false, double click. Now it's true, double click. Now it's false. So double clicking the property will toggle the value. So now with the auto size property set to false, notice that I have these resizing handles. I'm going to resize this thing so it looks something like this. And what I would like to do is to display in here 2 plus 3 equals, and then whatever the result is. So let's pretend that the user puts a 2 here. The user puts a 3 here. They click the plus symbol. Over here I want to see whatever this number is, which in my example I just said 2. Then I want to see plus, and then whatever this number is, I said 3, so it'd say 3, and then equals, and then whatever the answer is. Right? So we create like an arithmetic statement. All right, well, first of all, did you notice that when I unselect this label, we don't see a border? Plus, this text is on the upper left-hand location. I don't like that. So the first thing I'm going to do with this thing selected, I'm going to scroll back over here to the top, and I'm going to change the border style. What the border style does is to change the outline. Notice that I have over here fixed single as an option. So when I unselect this, you see a fixed single. Let me reselect this and change this to a border style of fixed 3D. Again, you can see the effect that it has. Looks like the button, or the label rather, is pressed into the screen. So it's up to you if you want a border style or not. In this case, I will stick with fixed single. Now, I don't like that the text is centered, or I'm sorry, it's located in the upper left-hand corner. I want that to be centered. So I will scroll down to text align, and you'll notice that it currently says top left, which is why it's over here. I'll select the drop down and click this guy over here. This is going to make middle center the text, and as you can see here, it's located in the middle and also in the center vertically and horizontally. Okay, we're looking good. The next thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of this text. So I'm going to go over here to the text property, and I'll click over here and then press delete, enter, and so now the text is gone. All right, so let me just do some final adjustments over here. I'll move this a little bit higher. I'm going to take this form, and that's way too wide, as you can see over here, so I'll make this a little bit smaller, something like that. I don't want these two buttons right here, the minimize and the maximize button. So with the form selected, as you can see over here, with the form selected, you'll locate maximize box and also minimize box. I want to change both of those to false. So I'll just simply double click over here to false, double click over here to false. Notice that the minimize and the maximize buttons are now gone. So the next thing I want to do is I want to change this from form 1 to some other wording. Well, that's the text property. So with the text property, I can just simply highlight all of this and change it. And so let's just say that this is our addition. We'll just say addition. I was going to say addition calculator. Maybe I could put that in there. Addition calc. Yeah, that's okay. So this is a very simple addition calculator. All right, so this is step 1 of any program that you will create. You will always create the graphical user interface. That's what this is called, right? The GUI is an abbreviation which we say GUI, which simply stands for the graphical user interface. You are creating an interface that is graphical in nature. Now, the second part is to give names to the various items. So what we want to do is we want to select this text box. Now, I think last time we talked about the Hungarian notation that all text boxes have to have a TXT prefix, all buttons have to have a BTN prefix, all labels, if you want to give them the Hungarian notation, have an LBL prefix. All right, so this is a text box. So we'll go over here to the name property, and since that's a text box, we're going to type in TXT. Now, by the way, this thing already has a name. It's called text box 1. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make life easier for us in the future by creating these Hungarian notations so that when we are in the code, all we have to do is type in TXT, BTN, or LBL, and then a list of all these items appear, and it makes it so that you don't have to remember the names of the controls on the form. So I'm going to type in TXT. Now this thing is expecting the first number, so I'll just simply type num1. Could I have typed in number 1? Yeah. Or first value or value 1? Absolutely. You type in a name that indicates what this thing does. So let me press enter, and you'll see over here nothing changes on the form. All we're doing is giving this thing an identity. That's what the name property is, and in this case it's going to be TXT name 1. Well, in a similar fashion, what I'll do is I'll select this text box over here and go to the name property and type in TXT num2. Do you notice that the first 3 letters are lowercase? So on your code, if you're typing in capital TXT, that's incorrect. The standard is lowercase for the first 3 letters, and then the beginning of every new word, it's capitalized. So for example, if the name is going to be first name, you'll notice that the letter F is capitalized, the letter N is capitalized. So it's this camel approach, right? The camelback approach is what you're using. In this case, let me return this back to num2. And then we want to give a name to this button. So this button over here, we're going to call that BTN because those are the first 3 letters of the Hungarian notation for buttons, BTN. And what does this button do? It adds numbers. So we'll say addition, or add, or sum, something that indicates what this button does. If you created a program and if you did something like this, I'd mark that incorrect because I don't know what X represents. So you want to be descriptive about what your button does. And in this case, BTN addition is pretty clear what this thing is going to do. Finally, we have a label down here. So traditionally, I just have you guys type in LBL result. Could I have said LBL answer? Yeah. Or LBL sum. Or LBL output. Right? All of those are fine. Just make sure that you give this name that's descriptive of what it's supposed to do. Some of you may say, hey, Professor Solis, this label and this label, you didn't give a name to it, and I won't. The reason why is these 2 labels don't change. They stay the same. Programmatically, I think you would agree that this particular label is going to have an answer. When I click that button, whatever this and this is, it's going to display something here. But this will still say num1. This will still say num2. So in other words, these two labels are static. They will not change. So I don't have to give them names. They are already assigned names, as you can see over here. This has label 1. This has label 2. So I can just leave them as is. I don't want them displaying with the LBL Hungarian notation. All right. Comments or questions? All right. So my father always says, measure twice, cut once, because he's a master wood craftsman. And so I used to work in the garage with him on the weekends, and I'd take a piece of wood and cut it, make a mistake, throw that away, get another piece of wood, cut it, make a mistake, get another piece of wood, cut it, make a mistake, so forth and so on. And he said, son, you're wasting wood. Remember, measure twice, cut once. So in other words, the life lesson is verification. A lot of software programmers go through their program without double checking, triple checking in fact. And what ends up happening is the company loses money because software was not written properly. How many times have you purchased software only for it to crash, or for it to crash in a certain scenario, or for it to not work in a certain scenario? That's bad programming. So what we want to do is we want to verify. But let's verify that all our names are correct. So let's go over here. My eyes are over here on the name property, or over here, making sure that as I select the various items, my eyes look over here, making sure that everything has a name. It looks like it does. We are all set. All right. Now, there is one more thing that I really should include. Let's go ahead and include a quit button. So let me go ahead and select this form and drag down a little bit. I'll take this button over here, and then I'll say Control C and Control V as in Victor. So Control C, Control V as in Victor. I'll move this button down here, something like this. Say, for example, open it up, and I want that to be my quit button. So that means I'm going to go over here to the text property. After you've resized it, I'm going to go to the text property, and I'm going to type the word quit. So we'll say quit. So this is our quit button, which means that if I click this button, it's going to stop the program, right? If I click this button, it's going to add the two items over here, place the results over here. So let me move this up a little bit. It's suggesting here, I guess that's all right. Move the form up a little bit, make this look as symmetrical as possible. Something like that looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and save my work. I've recommended that you always click this button over here, which says Save All. So you're going to click Save All, and now all of the changes that you've made are done. The one thing that I do need to change over here for the quit button is the name. Over here it says button 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this name property, type in BTN capital Q for quit. So once you've resized your button, go ahead and also when you change the text property so it says quit, now change the name property so that it displays BTN quit, press enter. And then, of course, you're going to save your work. Well, let's start off with the coding part of our assignment here. What I need to do is to generate the code so that it closes this window. Now, close means something special in Windows. Close means take the memory that you were consuming from the Windows resources and give it back to Windows for another program. Right? So close means close does not mean terminal state ready, TSR. It doesn't mean no longer display on the screen, but still remain active in memory. No, we mean that we're going to give up memory. We're going to remove it from the screen entirely. So the way to jump into the code area, the simple way at least, is to simply double-click on an item. So we're going to double-click on this button, and that takes us to the code area, as you can see over here. Now I can get back to the design area by clicking over here. That's the design area. By double-clicking the button, that goes to the code area. Let's say that I accidentally closed this. That's okay. Double-clicking on that button, again, will open up the tab that's responsible for the code. I no longer need the toolbox. Now I'm not going to close it. I'm just going to click on this auto hide push pin because I still want it over here. And then the same thing for the properties panel. I'm not going to close it. I'm just going to click on this push pin to hide it as well. Okay, so here you are in the quit procedure. If you click the quit button, What do you want me to do? That's what our goal is. We want to close the program. So to do that, you type in me dot clo. I don't even have to type anymore. I'm going to double click on the word close. Now, could you continue to type the word close? Sure you can. But since it appears, I can just simply double click. Now here's an important thing to remember. Open and close parentheses, press enter. That's all you have to do when you want to close a program, is just simply type in me.close. All right, if I run the program, so there are several ways that I can run a program. I can click the start button, or I can go to debug and click start debugging, or I could press F5 on my computer. So I'm going to start the program, and notice that it is over here what it looks like. I want to test the quit button, so I'll click over here to quit, and notice that the program stops. Okay. So starting a program is just simply clicking over here. I could click this button over here to close, but we've already created the quit button that's going to close this particular window. In fact, if I go down over here, you'll see that this program is running. So let me see here. Actually, it doesn't show like in the old Windows. I have to get used to Windows 10 here. This program is in fact running. I'll click quit to stop it. All right, let me go to the design panel. Now that takes care of the quit button. Now what I want to do is I want to generate the code for the addition button. So what I'll do is I'll double click on this addition button. By the way, let me make a couple of mistakes so that you'll know how to recover from them. Let's say that you meant to double click on this button, but you accidentally double clicked on this text box. Well, that's not what we want. We don't want to generate code for when the text changes for this text box. So if you accidentally double clicked on an item, the way that you get rid of it is you select from the beginning of the sub to the end of that sub, and then you just simply press delete. Let me make that mistake again. Let me double click on this text box, say for example. Now watch this drastic mistake that I make. I select the beginning, I select the end. Uh-oh, I accidentally selected end class. Now that's a drastic mistake. You don't want to do that. You need end class. You need public class, and then whatever the name of the form is. So don't accidentally erase this. You just want the beginning of the particular sub and the end of that sub. These guys serve as bookends for the code. Everything in between those bookends, that's the code that will generate when you click on something, say for example. So I'm going to delete this, go back over here to the design panel, double click on the button. All right, so when I double click on the button, this is the procedure that will execute when you click the addition button. So Visual Basic is called an event-driven program. So an event-driven program means an event is waiting to occur. Let me give you a demonstration. You don't have to do this. Let me run the program. So here's the program. What is this thing going to do? It's going to sit here until some sort of an event takes place. So let's come back tomorrow. It's still here. Let's come back the next day. It's still here. No event took place. All right, watch this. I'm about to click the quit button. That's an event. So when I click this guy, now it executes this, which closes the program. Finally, we're done. So Windows is an event-driven program. It is waiting for you to click this button. Once that event occurs, what is it that we need to do? Okay. Well, the first thing that I want you to do is to type in the following comments. What is a comment? A comment is like a sticky. And you know what stickies do. They're meant to write quick notes, maybe reminders, so that when you come back the next day or whatever, you look at the sticky to see what the quick note is. You can think of comments as like a sticky. And the way that you start off is with a single quote. So I want you to type in declarations. Enter, enter. Get user input. Enter, enter. Calculation. Enter, enter. Output. These are comments. These are not Visual Basic statements. What they are is kind of a guide to help you when you come back to your program to reveal to you any special notes or perhaps a reminder of what your code in this particular section is going to do. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to establish to you that when you start program, the first thing that you're going to do when you start programming is to declare stuff. Then you're going to obtain the user input. then you're going to perform some sort of a calculation, then you're going to generate an output. That's typically what you do for all of your programs. You take these 4 particular steps. Let's talk about declarations. All right, what a declaration does is it tells the Windows operating system, I want to reserve a chunk of memory for numbers that the user is going to be putting in. Right? So in other words, I am reserving memory space for different types of variables. All right, let's go back over here and let's see here. It looks like the user is going to enter a number into here and a number into here. Now, could the user enter the number 1? Yeah. Could they enter the number 1.5? Yeah. So they could enter in whole numbers or they could enter in real numbers. Real numbers are numbers with a decimal point. Okay. All right, in fact, let me do this. Let me open up my drawing pad over here. And write down some notes for you. Okay, and let me hook up my drawing pad so I can write some notes for you. Okay, so this is CS111, and so we're going to write some notes about data types. All right, when it comes to data types, what we're talking about is the nature of numbers or letters or text. So we have integers. And what is an integer? It's a whole number. So, for example, -3, 0, 4, 57. Those are all examples of whole numbers. Whole numbers do not have a decimal point. That's what a whole number is. In Visual Basic, we also have doubles. So what is a double? A double is what mathematicians call a real number. All right, so examples of a real number. -4.1, 0.5, 3.14. So numbers with a decimal point. Those are real numbers. Now, is 4.0 a real number? Yeah, because it's got the point and it's got a 0 after it. Now, the value of 4 and the value of 4.0, they're the same, but still there's a difference between those two in that one has a decimal point, the other does not. Okay. So we have some additional data types that we're going to talk about later. These are the first 2 that I want to mention right here. You have whole numbers, we call those integers. You have doubles, we call those we have real numbers, rather, we call those doubles. So let me switch back over here to Visual Studio. And I'm going to go into the code area. And over here, I want to do this. Dim num1 as integer. Enter. So what this line of code is doing is it's saying, hey, Windows operating system, reserve for me a chunk of memory. Now that chunk of memory, I'm going to call it num1. Oh, and by the way, the kind of data that I'm going to be putting into this variable is a whole number. So what is the name of the variable? Num1. What type is it? It's a whole number. That's what the word integer is. And so what you are doing is you are dimensionalizing, which is a fancy way of saying you are reserving space in Windows memory for this particular variable. It would be as if you called the travel agent and say, hey, I want to reserve 2 seats for a flight to Hawaii, come December, say, for example. So, You haven't purchased those. All you've done is made a reservation for the seats that you are going to occupy. Same thing here. You are making a reservation for this specific type of data, and we're going to call it num1. Now, an integer is a type of number, and it also has a size. For example, when you go to 7-Eleven and you say, hey, I want to get a 32-ounce Coke, or you go to 7-Eleven the next day and you want to get a 64-ounce of Coke, right? 64-ounce cup of Coke. So you know how they have the different cups sizes? Well, that's the same thing for an integer. An integer is a number of a certain size. In this specific case, it's a number between plus or minus 2.147 billion. Now, you don't have to remember that, but what you do have to remember is this thing has a size. And if I have a cup and if I'm pouring liquid into the cup, it can overflow. So I can use this as long as the number is less than 2.147 billion. If it's bigger than that, then I can't use an integer. I need something else that can accommodate a bigger number. Right? In this case, pretty much takes care of all the integers that we need. All right. Now, the next line of code, num2 as integer. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is as follows. This text box contains text. Let me say that again. These text boxes contain text. All right. So let me ask you a question. If I type in the number 4, how is that 4 treated? Is it treated as a number or is it treated as text? What are these? Are these number boxes? They're text boxes. So if I type in the number 2 over here and the number 3 over here, are those numbers treated as numbers or as text? Text. These are text boxes. These are not number boxes. So in other words, what's happening is you type in the number 2, but it's not being treated as the number 2. It's being treated as text 2, a string. Same thing over here. You type in 3, it's not being treated as the number 3. It's being treated as text. In other words, as if I typed in the word Robert over here and Solis over here. It's not being treated as a number. It's being treated as text. Well, that's a problem because we want to perform a mathematical operation. So what will I do? I will take this text item and I will put it into this numeric item so that I can actually perform the math that needs to happen, namely the addition of these two items. Okay, so another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create this variable called sum. Now you know what sum does. It is going to be the result of these two numbers over here. Sum will eventually be num1 plus num2. All right, so now I'm going to go to get user input. So what do I mean by that? Let us obtain the value that was entered by the user here and put it into this variable here. So I want you to understand this. This is not this. These are two different items. What is this thing? It is a text box, right? It's a text box, this guy over here. Specifically, it's called num1. What is this guy over here? This is a numeric variable. This is a type of number, specifically a whole number. That's what integer means. My goal is to take this text and put it into this number, num1. How do I do that? So first of all, we'll type in num1. Now you're going to type in this equal symbol. Later on I'm going to talk to you that this is really the assignment operator. All right, so we're going to type in num1, type convert dot to int. Now, we're going to convert the text box information into an integer. In other words, we're going to convert it into a whole number. Here's the thing. I can convert this into a 16-bit number, a 32-bit number, or a 64-bit number. All right. At this point, just simply accept that you want to convert this to a 32-bit number, and I'll explain why in a future lecture. All right, so to int 32, so that means you're going to change this into a 32-bit integer. Now type a parentheses. All right, where is the data that you are going to be pulling from? So I know it's a text box, so I type in txt, and that's all I want to type. Notice now that a drop-down appears indicating or asking you which one of these text boxes do you want, txt num1 or txt num2. I want this first one because I intend on putting this into num1. So I'll double click. All right, we're not finished yet. Dot T, I don't even have to type anymore. Already the text property is selected. So I'll double click over here, or I could have simply continued typing and then press enter. So I'll go over here at the end of the parentheses and then press enter. All right, let me explain what's happening. Whenever you see this guy over here, I know that your natural instinct is to think of this as the equal symbol, but this is not the equal symbol. We call that the assignment operator. So let me go back to my notes over here, and we'll say operators. This, we call this the assignment operator. Now the way that the assignment operator works is that you read information from right to left. Yes, question?
Is the equal sign the assignment operator or
The equal sign is the assignment operator. Yeah.
And also the
plus sign?
I put the plus symbol? Sorry about that.
yeah, but also
So let me
the
take this guy over here, delete it. Thank you very much. Good eye. What I meant by that is this is the assignment operator. Yeah, good catch.
plus is
Addition.
okay.
So in fact, let me put that down. Of course, you have this right here, which is the addition operator. Of course, you have subtraction, multiplication,
Division.
and then division is this slash right here. So this is subtraction.
Multiplication is just an asterisk.
Yeah, the asterisk is the multiplication operator, and then this is the division operator. All right, so let me switch back over here to Visual Studio. I need to obtain the next input, and so that's going to be num2 convert dot to int convert to int 32, whatever is inside of this text box num2 dot text. I've just explained that this is called the assignment operator. So this is how you read a Visual Basic statement like this. We start on the right-hand side and then read to the left. So whenever you see this, start on the right-hand side. Watch this. Obtain the text from this particular text box called txt num2. Convert this into a whole number, specifically a 32-bit whole number. Assign it or place it into a variable called num2. So I want you to picture this. This is a box, and specifically it's a number box, and this box only holds whole numbers. What we are doing in this statement is we are taking this text, because remember, this is a text box. This is also a text box. Even though you typed in a number, it's treating it as text. I don't want that. I want to convert that text rather into a whole number. And then after I convert it into a whole number, I want to put it into the box. So read from right to left whenever you see the assignment operator. You are in essence taking this information and putting it into here. But we don't say putting it into, we say assigning. You are assigning a variable or a value to this variable. Comments or questions? Okay. So now let's go to the calculation section. And in this section, what we're going to do is to add those two numbers. So I'll say sum. And what are we going to assign to the sum variable? Well, we are going to assign the addition of num1 plus num2. Whatever this mathematical result happens to be, assign it to the variable sum. So you'll notice that at the very top, This is why I created my variables that I needed. I made a reservation. I know I'm going to need a num1, a num2, a sum. So now I'm using those. Did you also notice that as I use these, let me delete this. Do you see the green squiggly underline underneath sum? This is an indication that you have a variable that has not been used yet. So now when I use it, as I have over here, notice how the green squiggly underline disappears. Because I've used this variable. I've used it here by adding these two numbers and assigning something to it. All right, now we are ready to generate the output. And the output is this. Let's take the summation of these two and put the answer into here. So, LBL. That's the label at the very bottom that we were just looking at. So I'll just simply double click it. Here we go. Dot text. All right, assignment operator. So what that means is as follows. We are about to put the answer into this particular text box. Now, I don't want to give you the complete answer first. Let's take this step by step. The first thing that I want to do is just to simply put the number result. Whatever the sum is, let's put that into here. Now, let me type something first. Don't type anything, just watch the show. If I type in sum, is this acceptable? Yes, it is, but it's something that I prefer that you not do. For example, what is number? As you can see over here, floating down here, or sum I should say. Sum is an integer, right? Sum is an integer. You are assigning an integer into a text. You shouldn't do that. You should assign a text to a text. So what we'll do instead is we'll say convert dot to string. Now, what is toString? ToString is really a synonym for toText. There is no such thing as the words toText in Visual Basic. What we have is toString. String is a formal definition of a combination of anything within quotation marks. So it could be the first name and last name. It could be an address with numbers and letters, right? It could be all kinds of special symbols like hashtag, dollar symbol, ampersand, right? Anything that you could put inside of quotation marks, that's what a string is. A string is synonymous to a text. So what you're doing here is you are taking the sum, which is a number, you are converting that to a text, but we call it toString, and then you are assigning it to the text property of this label. Okay. So again, with that assignment operator, you are reading from right to left. Let me run the program and show you what this does. So here we are. Here's our program over here. Let me type in the number 2, type in the number 3. All right, so when I click plus, what is that going to do? It's going to put the number 2 in num1. It's going to put the 3 in num2, and here we go. And then after that, it's going to add those two numbers. That's going to be sum. It's going to place the value of sum into the text property of the label, which is down here. So when I click over here, we see the number 5. Let me change this to a 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. Let me change this to a 10. 3 plus 10 is 13, so forth and so on. All right, but I don't want to see this. I don't want to see just the answer. What I'd like to see is 3 plus 10 equals 13. I'd like to see an arithmetic sentence or an arithmetic statement. So let me click quit. By the way, let me just perform this really simple mistake that I see a lot of intro programmers do. Hey, Professor Solis, I'm typing and nothing's happening. I'm pushing my keyboard and nothing happens. That's because your program is running. When your program is running, you can't make any type of adjustment. So let me go back over here, stop the program, and then notice what happens. This running goes away. So I stop the program. It's no longer running. Okay. Another thing you can do is, let's say, for example, you're running your program and you have run into some problem that even clicking this stop button won't actually stop the program. One of the things you can do when your program is running and you need to stop it is you can click this guy over here that says stop debugging. So if I click this, stop debugging, as you can see, everything stops. Okay, so now let's go back over here, and I want to step by step show you how we make an arithmetic statement. So instead of doing this, let me put my cursor over here, and I want to convert toString whatever num1 is, I am then going to concatenate that with a string that says plus, and I'm going to concatenate that with, let me stop right here, we're not finished. Take the number 1 and display it onto this label. This is called the concatenation operator. So let me scroll down a little bit.
Oh, it's from last Thursday's.
Yeah. So I like to repeat myself. This is the concatenation operator, which just simply means take the stuff to the left, take the stuff to the right, and connect those two. So we are going to connect this chunk of string with this chunk of string. Same thing over here. We're going to connect this over here with this over here. It's the glue that connects things together, specifically string chunks. All right, so another thing that I have to do is I have to convert dot to string num2. All right, so you'll notice that I'm simply wrapping to the next line. Yours may go on continuously. That's okay. And then we're going to have to concatenate that with whatever the sum is. So I'll put my cursor over here, press enter. So if your string of code continues to, as you type, it goes off screen, that's okay. I think I have, as you can see over here, the symbol here indicates that I have the wrapping mode where it's going to word wrap to the next line. Let's see what happens when I run this code. So I run the program, put in a number 2 over here, a number 3 over here. Okay, it looks like I have some sort of a problem over here. It says unhandled exception. Okay, so let me go ahead and break the code and let's see where the problem is. It looks like it's trying to take this text. Oh, I didn't type anything inside here. So it's trying to put blank into a number to convert this. It can't do it. So let me stop the program. Let me run the program again and make sure to type in a number this time. So I'll put the number 2 over here, the number 3 over here. Now I'll click plus. All right, so it says 2 plus 3. Now that looks like 35. The reason why is because I didn't put a space and I didn't put the equal symbol. So let me stop this and let me continue to add. So this number plus this number, and then I want to put something like this, equals, and concatenate that with whatever the number is. So I added this little chunk of string. A string is anything inside of quotation marks. See, I'm just trying to make it look pretty on the screen. I want to make it so that it's a number with this plus symbol, another number with this equal symbol, and then finally whatever the summation is. So if I run the program now and you see the code over here, let me type in the number 2, type in the number 3, hit plus, 2 plus 3 equals 5, because that's exactly what this thing does. It displays the first number, num1, there it is. It displays a space, plus, and a space, there it is. It displays the second number, that's the number 3. Then we display a space equals space, string, there it is. And then finally we display the sum, there it is. Let me click quit. Okay. So we read this as follows. Concatenate this entire string and assign it to this text property of this label, which is this label down here. Okay. So what is it that we are concatenating? We're connecting these two parts, which is now going to be connected with this, which is now going to be connected with this, which is now going to be connected with this. Okay. So we're taking it step by step. All right, so that's it for this program. So as you can see here, you've created a program that adds these two numbers. This is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.